Good afternoon, candidates and audience. I'm Karin Hribar, your moderator for today. This is the forum for Glenbrook District 225 High School Board. There are 10 candidates running for 4 open seats on the board. 5 of these candidates have agreed to the league's ground rules and format and are present today. They are David Hochberg, Matt O'Hara, Bruce Doughty, Michelle Seguin, who is here with us right now, and Peter Glowacki. Each of these 5 candidates will be doing a 15-minute mini forum in an interview style. Each candidate will begin with a 2-minute opening statement and will be allowed up to 90 seconds to answer each of 7 questions previously submitted by voters. Each candidate will answer the same questions. I will repeat a question if asked. Please remember to watch the timer. There will be 1 minute and 30-second warning times and then a stop sign. I ask that you finish your sentence then. With that said, let us begin. Michelle Seguin, could you start your opening statement?
Hi, my name is Michelle Seguin, and I'm running for the school board for the Glenbrook High School District 225, and I'm happy to participate in this forum, and thank you for inviting me. For the school board to work to ensure that our district remains one of the top school districts in the state. I want to work to provide a very safe, welcoming, and supportive environment for the whole district and the whole community in 225. I also want to focus on a few priorities as well, because I really consider schools the bedrock of the community, and I think it's a very meaningful way to give back to a community. By way of background, I have spent the majority of my career in the financial services and banking industry, and I have been a part of large teams. I've managed large teams. Most recently, I transitioned out of financial services and I now run business development for a boutique consulting firm. And I also have been very active in the community, volunteering at the schools where my children attend. I have 1 sophomore at GBN and 2 7th graders at MBJH. I hope that this holistic view of both a career and also volunteering in the community and also with children at the schools will bring a very holistic, broad perspective to the school board.
Thank you. We'll begin with questions. And the first topic is safe school reopening. And the question is, what are your ideas on safely reopening schools so that parents, students, and staff are reassured? And does this include remote or hybrid remote learning?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that this question is so important, and it is on the minds of everyone in our community, and I think in communities across the country. I would like to continue the process that the school district has been using to bring all of the kids and the teachers back to the school safely. I think we are also very fortunate in our school district that all families were given the option at the beginning to be in school or remote. And my understanding is that all of the families in District 225 that wanted to come back to the school have been accommodated. So I think that the school districts should continue to offer that hybrid option. At the same time, continuing the process of vaccinating the teachers, especially those that have been high risk. And eventually when the vaccine is available to students, which we understand from government authorities could be later this summer, to get the students vaccinated as well. So I think that that would be the process that I would recommend, balancing the advice from all of the health authorities as well as receiving all the input from the families. Excuse me.
Thank you. The next topic is priorities for pandemic relief funds. And the question is, the district is expected to receive about $830,000 in pandemic relief funds from the federal government. How do you anticipate these monies will be spent, and what do you think the priorities should be?
I think much of that will depend on the timing of those funds. So I think the sooner the funds are received, we should continue to focus on providing support for the vaccines, providing any necessary PPE that still is required in the classrooms and in the schools. So if it comes sooner, obviously we want to focus on those items. I think as the timing may get longer, related to that, we may use those for vaccines for the students, which I'd mentioned earlier is supposed to be later. Also, I think, which I'll talk about a little bit later, hopefully, is on mental health awareness. I think there has always been, mental health awareness, but I think it's been the mental health state has been exacerbated by the pandemic. So I think that if there are certain resources that we need for the district around mental health, I think some of those funds could be used for that purpose. In addition, I think there are also some students that may feel like they're behind a bit because of the pandemic. And hopefully we can use some of those monies for resources for that if students require additional tutoring or just additional curriculum work that they felt they've lost.
Thank you. The next topic is curriculum. And the question is, what is the appropriate role for this Board of Education in determining curriculum in the Glenbrook High Schools?
Thank you for that question as well. I also think that's an important topic and important just general discussion that's been happening in the community. The board's role is, I think, first, right, to hire a superintendent, right, that manages the district. And it's the board's role to empower the superintendent and the rest of the staff that runs the school in general. And that includes curriculum. So they are professionals who have been educated and at work in designing curriculum, and the majority of that work should be left to the people who run the day-to-day operations of the schools. In a case where perhaps the teachers and the administration are looking at a brand new type of curriculum that might require additional funding for the budget or just additional resources that require more funding, I think at that time the board may get more involved in that because obviously there's going to need to be more research and more data gathered perhaps on spending monies for that type of curriculum.
Thank you. The next question involves mental health. And the question is, many believe the pandemic has greatly impacted mental health, especially for high school students. Do you think the mental health resources provided by the district are adequate, or what additional assistance could be provided to students?
Mm-hmm. Yes, and as I mentioned earlier, this is one of my priorities for my platform is to take a renewed focus on mental health. Even prior to the pandemic, it existed in our school district and across across districts in the country. And there are currently resources that are available to help students and families in the district and also outside the district in our community. I would like to take a renewed focus on that to make sure that the resources are adequate and effective. I do think that perhaps there could be more awareness that is provided to the students and the family of the resources that are available. And then also take a look at the resources themselves to see, do we need more of them? Do we need different resources? Should we work with the community organizations like the Joslin Center and like Catch, the organization that works on issues like this? So those are some of my ideas and things that I think the board should investigate with the administration to make sure that the students feel like they have some resources.
Thank you. The next topic is teacher evaluations. And the question is, how teachers are evaluated and by whom is generally determined through the union bargaining process. Do you think teacher evaluations should include input from students and parents?
I believe that the current process for teacher evaluations is sufficient. I think that there is transparency in the process that is used, and that to me I think is the most important, that there is transparency in that process. But that the evaluations really should be left to the administration at the school. And obviously in collaboration with the union. I agree with that process. I think if there is a need for teachers and students to evaluate teachers or teachers and families, or students and families, excuse me, a need for them to evaluate teachers, then if they want to design something on their own, right, that is apart from the process that exists at the school, they certainly have the right to do that. But I do think that the process that exists today is sufficient for teacher evaluations.
Thank you. The next topic is resolving community opinion differences. And the question is, how would you as a board member work to be responsive to taxpayers and other stakeholders in the community who have strong differences of opinion?
I guess I would put this question in the category of how do you involve the community into the process and how to make them feel like they're being heard. So currently the board allows people from the public to come to the meetings. Pre-pandemic it was in person, and now it's virtually. And they have the opportunity to submit questions for consideration. And sometimes the superintendent will answer those questions live, and then sometimes they can be answered afterwards. So I do think that continuing that welcoming approach to bringing in the public and other stakeholders to see the transparency of the board is really important. In addition, I think it's also important that currently all board policies, all agenda, all the minutes are all public. So they can go online and they can view all of these things. So I think, maintaining that is very important. And, I hope that if I am elected to the board, that I would continue to look at ways to make the community feel like they are heard and that they have a voice.
Thank you. The last question involves your priorities. And the question is, what do you see as the top 3 priorities for the school district in the coming term, and what challenges to this do you see?
Mm-hmm. I would put my priorities in 3 categories, which I've also described in more detail on my website. So, the first one is more immediate, right? The back to school process. We talked about that earlier, really continuing all the work that they've done so far to get as many students and teachers back into the school. So I think, that's really a big priority. The second category, I would say, is just around general health and safety, continuing the vaccination process for the teachers, getting ready for the vaccination process for the students when it's available for them. And then also what we talked about earlier around the mental health aspect of the students. I do think there, again, we should have a general re-awareness, reassessment to make sure that the resources are sufficient. And then in the third category, I kind of group it all together in kind of general business of the board. And there's kind of three areas that I really want to focus on. I think just good decision making. I'm very much an advocate for, informed decision making, making sure you have the data and the research to be able to make informed decisions. Informed oversight and good governance is really the primary role of the board.
Thank you, Michelle Seguin. And that's it for this portion of the forum. And thank you for attending the forum, and thank you, audience, for listening.
Thank you for having me.